Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with Week 6. And last week, oh boy, not a good one. I went 7-7, which brings my total season record to 47 and 30 and 1. And for the rest of the season, I'm going to ignore the one tie. But yeah, last week was pretty chaotic for the NFL. But overall, one of the first weeks, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But before we begin our predictions, a quick reminder that the Minnesota Vikings and Houston Texans have bye weeks. And starting things off with Thursday Night Football, with the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to New York to take on the Giants, or New Jersey to take on the Giants. Eagles lost their first game, and I called it finally, which they had a 17-3 lead against the Broncos, and they blew it. And they blew it mostly because the Eagles did not run the ball. I guess that was the reason. Right now, the Eagles do not have an identity on offense. They thought the tush push. I thought the tush push was their identity in the run, but apparently they're throwing the ball more often. They're backing away from the tush push because of outside criticisms. Yeah, the Eagles are a bit of a mess, even if they suffered their first loss of the season. Not as much as the New York Giants, as they dropped another game, giving the Saints their first win. Jackson Dart came crashing back to earth, and I think the game pretty much changed when Cam Scatterboo fumbled the ball and the Saints took it all the way back for a touchdown. Those plays like that could really derail a game. And even though this game's going to be played in New York, I do feel like the Eagles are going to emphasize the run in this one. And normally I've been on the whole pick against the Eagles because I don't like them. This might not be a case. And pretty much, and since they lost, I could get off that train. I think the Eagles are going to get the win. Saquon, I'm expecting a big day out of him. Then we got another London game. We have the Denver Broncos taking on the New York Jets. And speaking of the Eagles, the Broncos getting a huge road victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, where they were down 17-3, but came back to beat them 21-17. Meanwhile, the New York Jets, they lost again this time to the Dallas Cowboys, and it was not even close. Don't let that final score and Justin Fields' numbers fool you. And with this, the Jets are the only team in the NFL without a win. And they're going to be taking on one of the toughest defenses in doing so. And given that given that that Eagle game for the Broncos looked like a stepping stone victory to something great, it's hard for me to go up against the Broncos to win. I have to go with the Broncos to win this one easily. And then we got one team that's surprising me and one team that's thoroughly disappointing me. We got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk about the Cardinals first, because they had a 21-6 lead in the fourth, and it looked like they was going to go up 28-6 until that idiot running back fumbled the ball at the 1 yard line. Seriously, they have not learned from the team that they're playing this week. Meanwhile, the Colts, they bounced back against the Raiders, and they made it look very easy. And they did so without a kicking game at that, as their kicker got hurt. He's gone for the year, so they're gonna have to sign someone off the street. And with this game being played in Indianapolis, yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Colts to get a dominant win over the Cardinals. It's not gonna look pretty. And then we got the Chargers taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Los Angeles Chargers lost to the Washington Commanders. They had a 10-0 lead, but then Washington pretty much used the clock to their advantage. It scored 27 unanswered. And it's one thing after another. This team is injured. And because you got Mario Hampton now, he look like he's gonna miss. He's been placed on IR. He's gonna miss 4 games. Meanwhile, for the Dolphins, speaking of big leads, what's with teams having big leads this week and blowing it? A 17-0 lead over the Carolina Panthers, where 2 of their touchdowns was scored off of Bryce Young turnovers, might I add. And in the second half, they only scored 1 touchdown since. Things are not looking good for Mike McDaniel at this point. but they are taking on a pretty banged up Chargers team who desperately needs a bye week sooner rather than later. But I don't know. I do think the Chargers do need this game a little more. I know they're injured to hell and back. I'm taking the Chargers to win. Miami, yeah. I do expect this one might be a high scoring game. I'm just gonna keep your eye out on that. And now we got the New England Patriots taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Patriots picking up a huge road division win over the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. And you can mostly thank Stephon Diggs for having a monster of a game. They'll be taking on the New Orleans Saints, who also had a pretty good week. They got their first win over the New York Giants. Yeah, I got nothing else to say about that. Patriots, they're on a roll right now. They're playing like the team we all expected them to play, and they're emerging as a sleeper team in the AFC. I'm gonna go with the Patriots to win. And now we got an AFC North battle between the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cleveland's coming off a tough road London loss over the Minnesota Vikings. And Dylan Gabriel, I ain't gonna say he looked that bad in his first ever start. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're coming off a bye week, coming off their Ireland game, beating the Vikings. And I feel like Pittsburgh, right now, they're the most stable team in the AFC North. Every team around them is falling apart, one way or another. But I'm not going to get into why. Well, for now at least. But game being played in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's playing a rookie quarterback. They usually don't bode well for the rookie. I got to go with the Browns to win. And then we got what I think is going to be a pretty good matchup. The Dallas Cowboys taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Cowboys picking up a road win over the New York Jets. The offense is still humming, even without CeeDee Lamb. That's what's impressing everyone. Not only that, the defense, which has been much maligned throughout the entire season, they look semi-competent in last week's game. They'll be taking on the Carolina Panthers, where they're down 17-0. They relied on Rico Dowdle to get the win, to get a huge come from behind victory over the Miami Dolphins, their second of the season. And I think might be I don't know, because we got one team that's good on offense, Cowboys good at offense, bad at defense. Panthers are, let's say, they're inconsistent on offense, inconsistent on defense. Even though last week was a bit of an okay game for both sides of the ball. I'm looking at the Panthers' credit. They did shut down the run very well in that. But even though this game is going to be played in Carolina, and I will be in attendance for that one, it's going to be a buttload of Cowboy fans there. I'm going to go with Dallas to win. Slight pick over, but I do expect this one to be a very high-scoring affair. And now we got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Seattle had a tough home loss over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Turns out Seattle only has superpowers on the road. That's what it seems. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars picked up a statement Monday night victory over the Kansas City Chiefs on Trevor Lawrence's birthday. He couldn't have wrote a better script for that. This game will be played in Jacksonville. They're coming off a hot victory, short week. Seattle's going on the road, a long road trip. I think Jacksonville could get another bounce back win. And wow, if Jacksonville wins, they're going to be 5-1. Who saw this coming? And we have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Baltimore Ravens, another team that's hobbled by injuries. Rams coming off a tough Thursday night loss over the 49ers, where Kyren Williams fumbled the ball at the goal line. They did went to overtime, but I think they took the ball out of Stafford's hands for some reason. And Kyren Williams, he said he took accountability for the defeat. At least he's doing that. Speaking of teams not taking accountability, the Ravens, they looked absolutely terrible. I know they had a ton of injuries, an all pro list of injuries, but giving up 44 points at home to a Houston Texans team that has been struggling on offense, that's a bad sign. And it's on that defensive coordinator, Zach Orr. I know he's beloved in Baltimore as a player, but as a coordinator, he's not ready for the job. And with the Rams being favored by a touchdown and the Ravens still expecting to be out those all pro players, Rams shouldn't have a problem here. Keyword shouldn't. And now we got the Tennessee Titans taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Titans somehow got a win over the Cardinals, but it's more so a defeat because that means Brian Callahan gets to keep his job for at least another week. They'll be taking on the Raiders, which, man, this team's not good. More so, Geno Smith is turnover prone like crazy this year, leading the league in interceptions. And you make you start to wonder what's going on with the Raiders offense. Defensively, they struggled against the Colts. And I know this game's being played in Vegas, so I do think they should get a win here. I think they have just enough talent to get the job done. But if the Titans win this game, the Raiders should start hitting that panic button. And then we got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Green Bay Packers. Bengals coming off a tough home loss against the Lions, but don't let that score fool you. They scored a couple garbage touchdowns late. Jake Browning struggling so much that they finally made a move. And they now got Joe Flacco as their quarterback. I don't expect him to start in this one. I don't expect Joe Flacco to start this game. But it's still gonna be Jake Browning's show. They'll be taking on the Green Bay Packers. We're coming off a bye week. Last time we saw them, though, they tied against the Dallas Cowboys. And this is the largest spread of the week. And because of that, and the Packers will be wearing a special throwback uniform in this game, it's hard for me to go up against Green Bay in this one. I think the offense is going to have a monster day. And then we have a game that was flexed into the 4th spot. We have the 49ers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And as injured as the 49ers has been for the last 3 years, they picked up a huge quote-unquote road victory over the Los Angeles Rams. Let's be real, that whole stadium was filled with red. They'll be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who picked up a huge road and yet another close victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Turns out the Bucs have the devil magic that the Eagles been having this entire season. That's interesting to me. And with the Bucs being favored by 3 points, and I've heard Brock Purdy he could come back, but I feel like they're saying he might not come back. I'm leaning towards him not returning in this game for this game. I'm still going to take the Buccaneers to win this game, but I think the 49ers, if they win this game, someone need to give Kyle Shanahan the Coach of the Year award right then and there, because what he's doing with his injury-depleted roster, the revival of Mac Jones, it's pretty impressive to me. Just wait till when they get their reinforcements back, though. And that takes us to the first of 2 Monday night games, and not quite. And like with last week, this might not be the game of the week, but this will be the Jersey matchup of the week. Buffalo Bills will be taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Both teams will be donning their throwbacks. Bills losing their first game to the New England Patriots, and you want to know why they lost? I'll give you two simple reasons. 11 penalties, 3 turnovers. And that's tough to overcome even if you only have Josh Allen. They'll be taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are coming off a bye week, but had their best offensive showing against the Washington Commanders, even though they were hobbled by injuries too. In this game is actually kind of interesting. But all I'm going to say is, if the Bills don't stop Bijan Robinson, they're going to have a big problem. And you know what? I'm going to go upset. I'm going to roll with the Falcons to get a huge Monday night victory in this one. I think having the extra week and a day rest is going to help them out. And with the Bills struggling against the run, they're going to be on the road. It's going to play a role in this one. And not only that, I know this has nothing to do with the game, but the Chick-fil-A in the stadium will finally be open for once. Yeah, I know it has nothing to do with it. Let's move on to the next game. And speaking of a team that's coming off of a bye week, a week and a day, we have the Chicago Bears taking on the Washington Commanders. The Bears coming off a bye week, but they last time we saw them, they got a win over the Raiders, and now things are kind of coming into place for the Bears. They'll be taking on the Washington Commanders, who had a huge clock management victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. They got Jaden Daniels back for that game. He played pretty well. And yeah, they got a big win over an injury hobbled Chargers team. Now, last time we saw these two teams together, y'all know what happened. Hail Mary. And it pretty much changed the trajectory of both teams. Washington made the run to the playoffs, and the Bears became a sinking ship. And while I don't think a Hail Mary will happen in this one, I do expect this one to be a pretty fun game to watch. But being played in Washington, I am going to lean towards the Commanders to win this game. But I will not be surprised if Chicago gives this a hard-fought battle. That's all. And last but not least, we have our game of the week. And that is the Detroit Lions traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Lions picking up a huge road victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. And I feel like this is a different team from what we saw from them in week 1. Now things are kind of coming together for the Detroit Lions. Sonic and Knuckles, they have a chance at history this game, because if both men score a touchdown, they'll break the record for most consecutive games of them two scoring together. I think that's the record. But they'll be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, where they're coming off a tough road loss over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where Patrick Mahomes, the difference in that game was Mahomes throwing a 99-yard pick six over against Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd's having a really good season. And even though this game's being played in Kansas City, and Kansas City is favored, I think the Lions are singing a different tune. They're hot right now. And I'm going to go with the Lions to win this game. It's going to be a very, very close battle, though. And on that note, that wraps up Week 6 predictions. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Gamble safely, and I'll see you next time.